Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage.
Put away the lingerie. I want to know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the news. I'd rather hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I park the sheets, just pull up a chair and tell me more.
When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On this show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform, Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the sex industry. Learn more at assembly4.com. ASSEMBLYFOUR.com. All right. Hi, welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling. This is Jessie Sage. I am your host. I am very excited because this week we have on Amber, who has been a longtime sex work advocate and disabilities rights advocate. She is currently in Florida. She's a sex worker and a sexological body worker. I always have a hard time saying that, even though I want to figure out how to become one of these sexological body workers. I always have to think before I say that word. So she does that. She does some sex education. She is herself a disabled sex worker who has worked specifically, not exclusively, but who has put a lot of effort into working with disabled clients. And I think that you will get a lot out of listening to her talk about her own experience, not just as a provider of disabled clients, but also as a disabled provider herself. She talks about getting into sex work, what that experience has been like for her, how it's been healing in a lot of ways, but how she wasn't always sure that's how things were going to be. We also kind of talk about the politics of sex work and pricing and the pressure to market yourself and price yourself in a particular way. And while this show is supposed to be a show about what's outside of sex work, I do think that these conversations are important. And I think it's important to talk and to think about how this job isn't the same job across the board. Just because you're a sex worker doesn't mean your experience matches up with another sex workers. And what we got to really dig into with Amber is talking about how like our own bodies and our own abilities and disabilities like impacts the way that we work and how we think about it and what sort of clients we have. So please tune into all of that. It's very important. She's also very amusing. So I think you're going to enjoy the episode. Let's see, announcements. Please know that the way that we're putting this show together, and this is the same for last season, but we are trying to get everybody on the same page here, is that this show comes out on Monday, and every Monday, a different interview with a different sex worker about a different topic. And then after that, we will, on Wednesdays, put out the after parties. So the after parties are where we talk me and Emily, the producer, and our guest for August. Our special guest for our after parties is Luna Luz. Some of you may remember her from my clip making days because she did a lot of clips with me and is a Pittsburgh-based artist. So she is going to be joining us for the after parties. You can watch the after parties if you want to see our faces on YouTube, me and Emily and Luna Luz, or you can listen to them wherever you get your podcast. So please remember that in a couple of days after this comes out, the after party talking about this episode will come out. Also, if you want to listen to the episodes early, if you are a member of our Patreon, paying $5 a month or more, you can listen to the episodes and the after parties a week early before they're released on all of the other platforms. That is patreon.com/sapiotextual. So please remember to go and do that. And my final plug, if you are a sex worker who wants to be on the show, please feel free to reach out. Our email address is nothustlingpod@proton.me. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Amber. I found it very enriching and important. So let's just dive right in. Hi, Amber. It's so great to have you with us today.
Hi, Jessie. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just 10 years of hearing your voice. It's wild, right? Doesn't seem real.
Yeah, I've had people say that before. It's funny when people know you by your voice. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So I was born in Tampa, Florida, and I lived in San Francisco for a good chunk of time, and now I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I am a disabled woman. I've been disabled since I was a baby, with multiple health issues, chronic illness issues. And I've done a lot in the world of activism, arts, disability justice, sex worker rights, and
you're pretty involved in the sex worker rights movement, right?
I was. I really had to take a step back. I suffered a complete burnout from doing disability activism in the way that I was doing it when I still lived in the Bay Area in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then so I decided, okay, I'll channel that into sex worker activism. And that was when I had just moved back to Florida after being gone for 10 years. So I was in culture shock all over again. And
I bet that's a huge difference.
Yes, even though I grew up here and I knew what it would be like. And then I really didn't have a community. So it was a long climb upward to do sex worker activism, not have a community, be in culture shock. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate what you're saying, because I think that in any kind of activism, like, burnout is so real. Because it can be traumatic. Doing like organizing and activism can be traumatic.
Yes, it certainly can. And there's a lot that happened when I was running the SWAP Tampa chapter here for many years. And by running, I was just trying to be the coordinator to bring everyone together.
Yeah.
I
did that in Pittsburgh with the SWAP Pittsburgh chapter, but then I pulled out after 3 years of doing that job because I was like, this is a lot. Somebody else needs to do it.
Yeah. I did it for many years, 5 or 6 or 7, but many of them I would take long breaks, and I would have a lot of health crises in between. And then I'm disabled and don't drive, and I'm also partially blind. So it was hard to do events on the ground when I couldn't get to people.
Right.
Especially there's no public transportation. It's horrible here.
Yeah. Do you miss San Francisco for that reason?
Yeah, I miss it very much. I mean, it's complicated. I do feel that I left too soon. I sort of had a bit of a my first wave of burnout from disability justice and everything, and ending a long-term relationship, losing an eye, becoming a sex worker. They all happen in 6 months of each other.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of things.
It was a lot of things. So I wish I could have held in there and got past that point. But I decided to do the logical thing, which was to meet a brand new man. And after knowing him 6 months, decide we were going to have a baby and move back to Florida, where I had never wanted to live again. So, yeah.
You know, I left a long-term relationship, left a PhD program, became a sex worker, started a new relationship with someone, had a baby, all within like a year of it too. So like, I had a year like that too. I didn't lose an eye, but like all the other things, yes. So, and that's a lot. It's those are life-changing things, all of them.
Yeah, it was complicated, and there was a lot to work out. I mean, my eye was like the cherry on top. I had a lot of other disabilities, but then without, I don't move my head. My neck is effectively paralyzed from mechanical degeneration. And so then not being able to move my head around in city traffic, I wasn't realizing, but I was really terrified all the time. And I didn't let myself realize that until it was too late. Yeah.
Wow. So, when you reached out to me, you said that, one of the things that you've been doing, like besides the activism and all of that stuff, is, you got into sexological bodywork and sex education when you transitioned into sex work. And we haven't actually talked about that on the show yet much, at least not in like a formalized way. Can you talk a little bit about like what that is and how you use it and what you do?
Sure. So, sexological bodywork meant a lot of different things to me, because it was coming on the heels of me just coming back to Florida and feeling very alone, and like immediately like, oh, I majorly fucked up. Majorly. I had been working as a sex worker for 2 years by then, and that was the positive thing in my life. That changed my life. That, for the most part, was empowering enough to keep going with it. But so I was like, and I had been working in nursing homes as a disability activist, where I would go into like the large state institution in San Francisco, as well as a bunch of small nursing homes, to work with not even seniors, but adults with disabilities who had ended up in a nursing home in their 30s, 40s. And I got really into a place of despair with it, just feeling like there was not much I could offer the folks I was working with. And I was like, these people, they need hand jobs because I need hand jobs. And disabled folks need, I really believed that they needed the basic comfort and intimacy that comes out of being a sexual person in the world. If that, was their choice. And I met several of my clients, especially younger men in the nursing homes, who indicated as such to me. So I quit my job, which was a huge deal for me, because I not being mobile and being in and out of a wheelchair and not driving in Florida meant that I was never going to have a career in Florida because of the way it was set up. So it was really important to me to have a career as a disability activist advocate. And so then to blow it up and leave it was like really, I couldn't tell which way it was up. Like, was this an intuitive leap, or was I, so when I left, I wanted to understand what I was doing with sex work. Yes, I was doing it to make money and allow myself to stay home more, because leaving the apartment for 10, 12 hours a day and getting on city trains had become too exhausting. But I also was doing it because it was about healing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like it could help others and it could be this other form of service work. And what was that going to mean? What was that going to look like? And then I found out about sexological bodywork after I'd come back to Florida. And I found out that at the time it was the Institute of Advanced Studies of Human Sexuality.
Where is that?
So it doesn't exist anymore, but it was in this tiny, dingy, cold San Francisco warehouse.
Oh, wow.
On right off of, am I going to say the right streets? It was in the Cathedral Hill area of San Francisco, off of Goff, between Franklin and Goff on like Pine or something.
I used to live in the Bay Area. So did Emily, the producer, actually. We're both Bay Area at one point in our life. Yeah.
I figured, so it was across the alley from the apartment I had lived in for 10 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So that was like, oh my God, okay, you clearly were so close to finding something major and you left too soon. So you have to go back to the side of the old apartment and go to sex school. So that's what I did.
That's neat. And so what is the training like for that? Because it's something actually I've thought about too, that I think it would be useful. Like I would like to learn more about that and study that. So tell me a little bit about what that program's like.
The training was a lifesaver at that time because the way they were doing it at that time. And now there are no more, I don't believe there are any US sites that are doing training. It's in Canada or Europe now.
Yeah.
But at the time, you would start with, I guess we did at least a couple months of online hours-long groups together. And then we went and had this like 2-week intensive in person. So it made it really accessible to people who couldn't travel or stay gone for long periods of time. And the training was an intense community builder. As a lonely person, it was amazing to see these folks appear, on. And this was before anyone was really doing Zoom because it was like 2014.
Yeah.
So it was such a gift to have these folks in my living room with me.
And
be able to show up as my whole self and be like, I live in Florida now. I don't know why, but I'm going to come back to San Francisco for the training. So that's how it started. And then it was a 2-week thing at the Institute. And we would go there every day. And first thing in the morning, everybody would get naked and
really?
Basically masturbate in a circle. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like pissy about it because I was like, okay, wait, it's 8 a.m. I didn't have coffee. It's really cold. And I don't want to masturbate.
What kind of conditions
circle.
Is this for masturbating?
Yeah, right. I'm like, where's my, pastry first? And then I wasn't used to being cold because I had already left San Francisco and I have arthritis. So the coldness is really hard on my joints. So it was just intense. I was just like, oh my God, this is like with anything I do that's really powerful. Part of it feels absurd too.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? Yeah. So we would have sacred circle of group masturbation and we had an altar and we created a temporary sacred community, really. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's neat. Yeah. How did you bring a lot of that like into your work that you were doing afterward?
I did. I bring all of it in bits. I have not I have not done like large group, like orgasmic yoga, because that's often what we would refer to masturbation as orgasmic yoga. Okay. Orgasmic yoga circles. Yes.
I love a good euphemism.
It really is. It sounds prettier than masturbation. Yeah. I'm like so fine with that word, but I'm like, I'm a poet. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of an ugly sounding word though.
It is an ugly sounding word. You're right. I think so too.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't done as many groups here because Florida just wasn't there in 2013, and it's hard. There were mainly, what I was just finding is like really wealthy Republican swingers that wore no clothes but a lot of gold jewelry, and were like just the real estate agents that were just like swinging and otherwise had very conservative lives. And I
can see that. I can totally see that.
Yes. So, so they, like, I had a older woman. She probably was 80, and she was completely naked, and she was wearing like bright white, expensive running shoes and a gold chain, and she had her hair dyed that orangey red, and she just like laughed in my face heartily at the nudist colony when I tried to tell her. I'm like, oh, well, so it's orgasmic yoga. She's like, honey, I don't need you to teach me to masturbate. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine that like Florida would be a great place for this sort of work.
No, it wasn't. Things are changing now. There is a large-ish tantra community that I'm perceiving and like starting to explore now. Things are really starting to change, but it's still, you know, not. It's Florida.
Yeah.
I think I went to a play party once, and it was at a reptile farm.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally breeding iguanas and snakes in like aquariums surrounding the dungeon area, which was like on this like cheesy indoor-outdoor carpeting.
Oh my gosh.
It's very Florida. God bless it. That's why I love it in its own way.
That's not the sexiest environment, I wouldn't think, but I don't know. Maybe I could be convinced otherwise. I'm not sure.
Once you get used to life in the swamp, your standards change.
I guess. I want to go back to what you were saying about the nursing homes, because an interesting thing has happened in my work, which is that I've had a couple of different people. One is a writer that I'm actually thinking I should get you in touch with, because he is writing a book right now on sexuality for disabled adults, and how we have like infantilized disabled adults basically, and haven't provided for their like sexual needs in the way that seems like there should be more emphasis and focus on that, because it's a natural like human need. And his brother is in his 60s and has been in a nursing home since he was like 11 or something like that. And he's now the guardian of him. And the way that he ended up reaching out to me was like, my brother has been asking for a girlfriend for the last couple of decades. And I keep saying, I can't provide you with a girlfriend. And then suddenly it struck him like, wait, actually, I probably could. Why am I dismissing this need? Like, I'm bringing him the food he wants, but like what he's asking for is a girlfriend. Like, I can get him a girlfriend, like, which was me. I was the girlfriend, which was very cute because he called me Julie, and that's not my sex worker name or my real name. And we don't know why, but like, it's just like, okay, go with that. All right.
Yeah.
He's like, you're my girlfriend, Julie. And I'm like, yeah, I am.
That's great.
It's very cute. But, and then, in New York, I had a social worker reach out to me, similarly, and some of her colleagues as well, who said, we work with disabled adults, and a lot of them, are expressing very real, very legitimate needs for like human touch, and, ones that we can't give them or don't feel comfortable doing because of the capacity that we're working with them in, or their siblings are reaching out. And it seems to me like there is at least I've seen this in my work. And I think once you start doing something, you kind of attract more of that thing. But like, I've had a lot of people reach out to me who aren't the clients themselves, but the social workers, the therapists, the siblings, the family members of people who aren't in a capacity to be able to like book and pay for something themselves, but who have, advocates in their life who are helping them. And that's been a really lovely thing, because I feel like there's kind of an emerging like awareness of sexuality, or just even touch, intimate touch, as like a basic human need that's being taken a little bit more seriously. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, or if you've had similar experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, it's a very it's a broad canopy, and there's people who have all different kinds of needs under that. And certainly the thing with folks in nursing homes is that they don't always have a lot of access to their own funds, or communication, or if they have any kind of speech disability, then it becomes hard to like make these calls. But, whenever possible, I come out of the disability justice model of peer counseling and peer support and, self-empowerment. So whenever the folks can make those contacts as much as possible, that's always preferred.
Sure.
And, so you just have to be flexible about whether, how you're open to folks with disabilities reaching you, and understanding, even if they don't reach out to you themselves, that might not mean it's because they are not fully within agency, but there's other reasons. I have a client who has cerebral palsy, and his speech is quite impaired. And so when he's trying to meet new sex workers, I always offer to assist, because he can run into really negative experiences where potential sex workers are just like, they don't understand what's going on. They think someone's playing a trick on them. They can't hear his voice. People aren't always extremely understanding. But I mean, things are slowly getting a bit better, and there's more, understanding around it. When that movie with Helen Hunt came out, based on the true story of the disabled man who worked with sex surrogate, The Sessions came out in 2012, and that is
I've
when
never seen that. Is it good? Is it a good representation, or what do you think about it? Thank you for listening to When We're Not Hustling. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so will help other people find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me.
It's mixed. I was living in Berkeley at the time, and so a lot of my older disabled friends who were activists and artists, they had actually known, I want to say his name is Mark O'Brien, but I'm blanking for a minute. They had actually known the real person who lived in an iron lung. And they're like, oh, he would have never said that. Oh, that's Hollywood. Of course, there were all these detractions, but it was decent. It was decent for 2012, and nothing else had been seen like it since then, And I mean, I saw it, and I'm like, well, that's it. Changing my life. I'm quitting real work, and I'm just going to do this.
Is it Mark O'Brien?
I think so. Okay. I think that was his name. And I meant to look up a bunch of things too, because I've known and told these stories for years. And then now I'm like in a place where I'm like, I have aphasia and I have no idea what that person's name was.
I totally understand. I don't know what my friends' names are half the time.
Yeah.
So like
Yes. Yeah. And then I've worked with my friend Kaz and I. Kaz is an amazing disability justice activist who works in sexuality. We have run some organizations in the last 10 years. The first iteration was called DASAN, which is Disability and Sexuality Access Network. And then it became Pleasurable, as in, with the capital A enable.
So that's clever. Yeah.
I didn't come up with that name. It was a great improvement on Dasan, which I did come up with. Because I'm like, it's just very practical. It's like social work. It's called Disability and Sexuality Access Network. And they're like, what? That no one can remember that. But So, and now there's tons of organizations out there, or not tons, but there's many, and the realm of disabled sex educators is becoming quite large. And so I'm really heartened by that. And
how does that intersect with like your own disabilities as like a provider? Is it because you said going into sex work was very healing for you? I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, but then also like as a provider who also has your own like disabilities, how does that help you or make it like, what is the, I'm trying to think of the best way to ask this question. Like, does that make it easier for you to relate to your clients, but harder in other ways? Or what's your experience like with that?
In terms of relating to disabled clients, because I am also disabled?
Yeah, but I imagine that like also being disabled would make, it harder for you to do the work in other ways too. I mean, you were talking obviously about like transportation and things like that, but yeah.
There's many buts and complexities involved. And, I mean, just to start at the beginning, becoming a sex worker was healing, but it was also just out and out. It wasn't clear if I was veering off the side of the road and going to crash, or I was veering off the side of the road and was down a really amazing new path. It was not clear. And I was just trying to get control over the car, metaphorically speaking. So, it didn't always look like healing. It looked like a lot of as my old friend of mine from high school said, "When did your life become a Quentin Tarantino movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And
I feel that.
yeah. So it was a complex healing that looked like hurting sometimes, and then I knew going into the work that I wasn't really going to be helping the people who were my clients in the nursing home, because I could not get there and have the privacy to work with that, to see them like a regular sex work session. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I'm still like abandoning them. And there was a lot of grief around that. Yeah. And I'm only going to be working with the people who can get to me, or I can get to, which in the Bay Area was better than it is in other parts of the country, but by no means easy in terms of transportation for myself or for them. Right. So, like you work with someone who's using an electric wheelchair and maybe has paralysis or really extreme spasticity where they don't move. And then I'm 4'7", and I've had severe rheumatoid arthritis since I was a baby. So I cannot. Wow, you were born with that? 18 months. Wow. It set in 18 months. Yeah, I was a juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I
didn't know that ever started that early.
Yeah, the juvenile form certainly can. And that was 1980, and there wasn't any medication for it. Yeah. Now there have been great advances, and a lot of little kids who get it do not have the extreme results I had. But I basically we only had baby aspirin and steroids, which caused a host of many other problems.
Yeah, because a lot of the treatments have come out of like AIDS research, right? For rheumatoid arthritis.
Some of it has also cancer. A big cancer drug, methotrexate, is one that's used for both cancer and rheumatoid arthritis. But now they have all these biologics, which are injections that really disable. They cause you to be immunosuppressed. Right. But that's what you need, because rheumatoid arthritis is your body attacking your cartilage, the immune system attacking the cartilage. So that immunosuppression model has really, really worked well for children who get it early on. But I didn't start on those drugs until I was like 25. So so I have a lot of deformities. Like I said, I'm 4'7". None of my joints are very flexible. So, it would be Probably. I'm always sort of sad and frustrated that I'm like, well, I actually could provide better service to this person who uses a wheelchair if I could like get up on the bed and climb around and like suspend myself or crouch or,
Yeah.
But we are truly in it together. I'm like, I bring what I can and it's more of an energetic. I mean, I can do plenty of physical things that people would like to have happen with with some adaptation, but a lot of it is energy.
Yeah.
Energy work.
Yeah. Do you find that I loved what you just said with like, we're in it together. I've had experiences with clients that I wasn't entirely sure like how to interact with their body. And for some of them, because they also haven't had like sexual experiences for whatever reason, they're also not sure how to do it. And I'm thinking of one like severely obese client that I had who was a virgin, and he was like, I'm trying to think of exactly how to characterize this because I can't exactly remember what was said, but I remember that both of us were like, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do this, but like, let's give it a go. Let's figure out like how to make this work. Like, and there was something that was really like lovely about that experience because I didn't come in saying like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here because I didn't know. He was like bigger than what I could maneuver around, but we had a great experience. It was very fun. And it was because we had this spirit of like this energy, like, okay, let's just play with each other. Let's just figure this out, and do you find that you have a lot of like that's how your clients view it too? Like they're like, okay, let's have fun together. Let's do this energy exchange.
It's complicated. People come to me after great difficulty of trying to have enough money because they're living on disability benefits, which is not even enough to cover basic, expenses, $700 a month or something like that.
Crazy. Yeah.
So they come with not enough money. They come without accessible transport. They come with all these huge things, as I do when I'm trying to have new experiences with other type of healers. And so partly they want it to work. They want it to be good. It feels very high stakes. And so the ability to be super casual about it is a little compromised because of how hard it was to get there.
Yeah, that is really complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. And that has been something I struggle with where I'm like, okay, you can only hold so much and you can't be responsible for all of it. It's a co-created thing. And because I will do the thing where I'll have a client come see me who I know it's been really high stakes for them to get to see me and make the arrangements. And then I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do enough fun stuff. I really want it to feel worth it to them. And then I'm like, okay, I can't get bogged down in that because then I'm in this anxious place. Yeah.
Right. That is really hard. Yeah. And I think that what you're bringing up is really important, which is that like for this population, a lot of them, unless they have like family money, like this is a big sacrifice, like financially. Like we have some, clients for whom it's super easy to pay for a session, but it's usually not our disabled clients.
Yes. I mean, the truth is I prefer to work with disabled clients, and that's my mission, is to focus on disabled clients. But the majority of my clients are not disabled because there's not enough disabled folks who can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I still do this for my own self-care and healing and chronic illness care, sex work. I need that money to do that. So the majority of my clients are not technically disabled. A lot of folks coming to me who, my clients do tend to be cis het men, and which I'm really have wanted to expand from for a long time, but because Florida think that was a
I was going to
hashtag.
say that as you were talking about disabled clients, I was thinking, I know so many providers who are like, I want to work with queer folks, but I have to subsidize that by working with cis.
Yes, right.
It's the same problem.
I would love to work with queer disabled folks and femme folks. But it's you know, those are sort of the ideals that I don't always get lucky enough to see all the time. But where was I going with that? And also I charge sliding scale rates for my disabled clients. And I'm able to do that because I get a regular rate from a client who's not disabled.
Yeah.
Somewhat. And that's a whole nother thing. You know, I was told by a life coach, a sex work adjacent person this week that why do I charge such low rates? My rates are so low. And I've heard this for the last decade. I honestly, my answer is my experience as a disabled sex worker with the particular way that I look, because there are other body types that are disabled that are more fetishized, but is that I can't charge more than that or my phone will stop ringing.
Yeah. There's a reality.
That's complicated. Yeah. And then people who don't know, you know, they're like, well, do you just have bad self-esteem? I'm like, I don't know. Do I? I mean, just like, it's difficult. I'm really practical.
Seems like I'm shocked. Like, I'm not shocked because there are people who just live like in a bubble and can't imagine that other people's reality is different. But like, that seems so off base to me to not be able to imagine that you know your own market and that you know like how to run your business and that you're not just like, don't just have low self-esteem or whatever else they believe. But I
think some of them, you know, friends of mine, women in the industry, they're like, but you're a niche market, so you should be able to charge more. And I'm like thinking, what world do you live in? Like, no. No, because they could see a normative bodied sex worker who looks a certain way. And so if they're going to spend that money on a disabled person, it can only, what I have found is that they have to be incentivized by it being a reasonable rate. Even on the low end, maybe, because otherwise they're not going to spend that. They're going to choose to spend it on someone else, you know? I mean, my able-bodied clients are not wealthy. I've also never, a lot of sex work is very hand to mouth to me. I don't make a lot of money. I make enough in less time than it would take me to make it if it were a regular job. And that's what I need is time to care for myself. But I don't make a lot of money, and rich folks just are not attracted to or I think I come from a very working class family, you know, Latino immigrants, and like, you know, my clients are construction workers and lawn care guys, and you know, and it's part of my vibe. I think it's a very casual girl next door, comfortable, nurturing vibe, you know. But I often get down on myself. I'm like, if I had figured out how to make some rich people be into me, then I could really do X, Y, and Z. But so it's not like I see enough rich clients to subsidize a lot of disabled clients. It's that's not even the truth.
I think we all have to deal with like the realities that we have. And that's why I find like sex work Twitter and things like that to be somewhat frustrating, because everybody's comparing themselves against people who are in like different markets, different body types, different demographics, besides the fact that I think people are often lying too, that you're like comparing your reality against their lies. And it's just like, I think that, you know, one of the things that we need to learn to do like in this business is to like not do that, not compare ourselves against other people, and to be like, become very like grounded in like who we are and what we can and can't do. And that seems, I got upset with another provider one time because she is a young, thin, conventionally attractive provider who said something in a thread to us, was like, I can't believe these guys don't think that they have to like woo me. And then she said something like, how did she say it? She said something like, they don't just get to have sex with me because they've paid me. They have to romance me. And I was like, what? Like, what universe are people living in? Do you know that this is a job and like that is what they're like paying you for? But like, as a plus size woman in my late 40s, like, I don't get to be that picky. I don't kick guys out because they said something that I found somewhat offensive. Like, and we have to like, I think it would be, and I understand that is her reality at this point. She can be that picky, but like, I can't be that picky.
Exactly. That is the real, you cannot be that picky in some circumstances. And, and it gets complicated when so I also move in like the sort of life coaching, transformational coach world, the tantra world.
Yeah.
And that can be very precious and very, what to say, manifesting abundance and your divine right to be worshipped and blah, blah, blah. And sure, I believe in those things and I will use them with other clients, but there's some practical terrain in the middle there where all that doesn't necessarily apply. And so then you feel like, I'm still doing this wrong because I don't manifest abundance and I'm not picky enough. And
That's, in a different framework, in a Christian like framework, I've often been very put off by people calling themselves like blessed, because like when they have something going on in their life that seems like positive, because to me, I read that as like, you think that like somehow you're like more special than other people, like God's rained down their favor on you for some reason. And it feels to me like there's a little bit of that, like you just have to do it right and then like things will be better. You just have to think better or believe more or something like that. And there are like realities to the world that we live in, which still is ableist and racist and all of the things that fat phobic. And that's just a reality that we have to live within.
Yeah, it's just being a disabled or chronically ill person and benefiting from wellness culture, but at the same time, if you're not well, it's not your fault because you didn't manifest these 7 ascending steps of blah, 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 you know? And so it can get very... I go to a spiritual discussion group. We study this late 1800s Victorian clairvoyant philosopher, and
what's her name?
His name, and I was like, oh, I don't want to study men, and they're like, no, you don't get it. He believed in fairies. His name is Rudolf Steiner, and he was like, mystical Christianity inspired humanism biodynamics kind of world. As he really saw the future because this was as the Industrial Revolution was setting in. But there's a lot of... It's a philosophy group and they're all very, spiritual community, wellness community adjacent. And there's a lot of just crazy offensive shit that gets passed around in those groups. I love my ladies and like we're okay now, but like I had to have like a fit a couple times because I'm like, No, you blindfolding yourself is not you having a revelation about what it is to access your higher senses beyond the visual. Like, no,
Yeah.
you cannot blindfold yourself and go to the grocery store and try to live as a blind person for your awakening. That is, I'm sorry, the social justice person does just like, no, I can't with that. And they're like, oh God, Amber's going off.
But I mean, they need that perspective though. And that's how I felt about this provider. I was like, no, I'm sorry. I can't listen to this because it's nonsense, because you can maybe do that, but I'm not kicking somebody out because they have an opinion that I disagree with, unless it's harmful to me. Like, obviously, if it's harmful to me in some way, but like just not doing something the way that I want, or not believing something that I believe in, that's like, I wouldn't have a business if I just like, just different. Yeah.
And then I'll say that another, after 12 years, these threads only get more complicated as I get better at thinking about them and seeing what is the real tangle here. So because I'm going through like, I didn't work for a long time over the pandemic, and I effectively became legally blind over the pandemic. So I just was on pause for a long time. So in the last 6 months, I've been working a lot, like I haven't in a few years. And so I'm back in the place of quandaries that I've never understood how to feel about. And one of those being that, like, I'm sorry, I totally just which quandary? Oh, the fetish community and the kink community, because disabled women are heavily fetishized, and short women are heavily fetishized, and a lot of times the shortness is more. I would say I see more clients who just are really into really short women than they have any interest in disability or any interest in me being artsy or into holistic healing. It's all just, it's 4'7". You're 4'7". That's why I'm coming to see you.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And it's complicated, because and so I get asked by other providers, well, can't you charge more for fetish work? And I'm like, I don't always want to do the fetish work. Like it does not. I mean, I will be the first to fetishize myself, and as long as it's with my control and consent, that's fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of weird, stuff comes up. People want me to enact their fantasy of molesting their disabled underage daughter.
Oh my God.
Because it makes them feel and usually I have a lot of theories about it, and it's hard to talk about it without then feeling like, well, if I say that, that's a slight to the kink community. And maybe I'm not being smart enough about, I have to give so much grace on all sides. But, and for a long time too, and, grind culture, I was just like, you just need to act, girl. You just need to get better at acting. Just act, make that money. And
but there's a cost to that too, though.
Yes. So I'm finally starting to just say, no, I'm sorry, that's not, I celebrate your fetish. Everybody has a right to have their fetishes and things, but that's not for me. The molestation,
right?
I just can't go there when so many disabled women are infantilized and hypersexualized at the same time.
Yeah. I think that that's really important. I think that like a key to any like longevity has to be having boundaries that, you don't cross, because we also have to protect our own spirits, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. It was, we should probably wrap up. It was really great to talk to you.
My God, that flew by.
I know it did. I was like, we could talk about this forever because it's so rich. But what I like to end every episode with 3 questions. So what are you reading right now?
Right now, I am rereading Barbara Corrales' Urban Tantra because I have met a new tantra community here in my neighborhood in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm kind of like, what? It's like a whole new world. I'm like, what would Barbara Corrales say about that? So I'm going back to the book. I'm always reading various poets because that's was my first love as a poet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you listening to?
Right now, sometimes I have this juke joint playlist where it's like a strange mixture of Tom Waits and this like jazz singer from back in the day named Blossom Dearie, who had a very high.
I like both of them.
And my clients are like, awesome. Wait, what? This is performance art. I'm like, yeah, let's pretend it's sexy because I think it's fun. We're in a saloon.
I love both of those. Yeah. And what are you excited about?
I'm excited to get to know this new community here and, you know, maybe have like a peer group for the first time in a long time. Because, you know, if you're a cool sex worker and you're coming through Florida and you want to hang out, let me know. Because we're starved over here for cool people to hang out with. So I'm excited to get to know this new tantra group. And also I'm excited to be back in the Bay Area in August for a little bit, see my old peeps and stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. And where can people find you?
So, you can find me. My Instagram is amberglow1012. And same for my Twitter, amberglow1012. I've taken down all my websites and everything. For the longest time, I worked as Buttonsberry.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I'm getting older and I wanted to go a little easy on the pressure I felt to delight and be just more serious and who I written moody and spiritual. And I'm like, all right, we're Amber Glow. It's where you're at. And it feels good. So yeah.
I like that about like people who've been in the industry for a while, this like ability to rebrand and be like, okay, so that like manic pixie dream girl.
Yes.
I'm 46. I'm not doing that.
Yes. Right. It gets exhausting. Yes.
Yes. It was really, really good to talk to you. So thank you so much for reaching out and coming on the show. And I think your experiences and insight are really important.
Thank you for all your great work in the community. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or visit my website at jessiesage.com. The show was produced by Emily Foster and the music is by Benjamin J. Beninati. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Not Hustling Pod. To support the show and get sneak peeks, please go to patreon.com/sapiotextual. For more information about our show and what we do here, please visit our website at nothustling.com. Signing off. Have a great week.